Imagine waking up each morning only to face unseen battles you didn't even know existed. Every day carries assignments, challenges, and decisions that can either elevate or derail your destiny. But what if there was a way to walk through your day fully protected, guided, and empowered? Covering your morning with God's protection is not just a ritual, it is a declaration of authority, alignment, and preservation. In these first moments of the day, you set the tone for every encounter, safeguard your mind, and activate favor that shields you before challenges even appear. Start your day covered, start your day victorious. Morning is the spiritual gateway of your day, because whatever gains access first often determines what has permission to stay. When you wake up, you are not just opening your eyes physically, you are opening your life to influences, decisions, conversations, movements, and unseen forces that will interact with you for the rest of the day. The morning is the foundation layer of time. Just as a building reflects the strength or weakness of its foundation, a day reflects what happened at its beginning. If the foundation is neglected, cracks may not appear immediately, but they will surely show later. Every day already carries assignments before you step into it. Some assignments are blessings prepared to locate you. Others are tests designed to distract you, delay you, or drain you. The morning determines which of these finds expression. When the morning is surrendered to God, the atmosphere of the entire day shifts. Alignment replaces confusion, and direction replaces randomness. This is why scripture repeatedly emphasizes seeking God early, not as a poetic suggestion, but as a spiritual law. Early alignment establishes authority. Control of the morning is not about waking up early alone. It is about who receives your first attention. If fear, social media, worry, or noise speaks first, they frame your mindset and emotions for the day. But when God speaks first, peace becomes the interpreter of every event that follows. The heart is most impressionable at the start of the day, and whatever fills it then tends to echo throughout your actions and reactions. Morning prayer is therefore an act of governance. It is the believer declaring jurisdiction over the day before circumstances attempt to take control. By committing the morning to God, you are spiritually setting boundaries around your time, your mind, and your path. This is why some people work hard yet experience repeated frustration, while others walk through the same challenges with unusual stability. The difference is not effort alone, but alignment at the gate of the day. When the morning is handed over to God, wisdom precedes decisions, restraint God's words, and discernment filters opportunities. Even mistakes are minimized because sensitivity is heightened. The day does not become problem-free, but it becomes God-led, and that leadership quietly but powerfully determines outcomes. Protection is not something believers should assume simply because they are faithful or familiar with spiritual language. It is something that must be consciously activated through alignment with God. Many people believe safety is automatic, but spiritual laws do not work by assumption. They work by order and positioning. Alignment is the posture of the heart and the direction of the life that agrees with God's will, authority, and timing. Without alignment, even sincere effort can leave gaps where vulnerability enters. Activation implies intentionality. It means you deliberately place yourself under divine authority rather than moving independently and hoping God will endorse your steps afterward. When a person is aligned, they are not just asking God to protect what they want to do. They are allowing God to direct what they should do. This distinction matters because divine protection follows divine direction. Many dangers are avoided not because harm was blocked, but because the person was guided away before harm ever appeared. Spiritual alignment begins inwardly. The heart must be yielded before the life can be covered. When pride, haste, or self-will dominates, protection weakens, not because God withdraws love, but because the individual steps outside the order that sustains safety. Alignment restores that order. It brings the spirit, mind, and actions into agreement with heaven's design. In that agreement, protection becomes active rather than theoretical. Prayer, obedience, and sensitivity are tools of alignment. Through prayer, a person submits their plans and acknowledges dependence. Through obedience, they respond to instruction even when it contradicts logic or convenience. Through sensitivity, they discern when to move, when to pause, and when to withdraw. These three create a spiritual environment where protection operates naturally. It is not loud or dramatic, but it is consistent and effective. Many testimonies of divine safety are actually stories of alignment. A delayed journey, a cancelled plan, an unusual discomfort, or a sudden change of mind often becomes the difference between danger and preservation. What appears ordinary on the surface is often a quiet expression of activated protection beneath. This is why alignment must be daily, not occasional. Yesterday's obedience cannot guard today's choices. When alignment is maintained, protection becomes proactive rather than reactive. Instead of responding to threats after they arise, life is structured in a way that avoids unnecessary exposure. This is not about living in fear. It is about living in order. In that order, peace replaces anxiety, clarity replaces confusion, and the presence of God becomes a continual covering over every step taken. Darkness plans at night because night represents concealment, silence, and strategy in the realm of the unseen. While the physical body rests, the spiritual environment does not pause. Intentions are formed, agendas are set, and influences are released long before a person becomes aware of them. This is why many battles seem to begin suddenly during the day, even though their roots were planted earlier. Night is when opposition prepares quietly, counting on ignorance, fatigue, and spiritual negligence to gain advantage. However, authority is enforced in the morning because morning represents light, order, and declaration. Morning is when visibility returns and governance is re-established. Spiritually speaking, the morning is the moment where outcomes can still be altered before plans mature into manifestations. When a person rises and aligns with God early, they are not reacting to attacks, they are interrupting strategies before they gain momentum. This is the power of morning authority. It shifts the advantage from reaction to dominion. Enforcing authority in the morning means taking responsibility for the day before. It takes responsibility for you. It is a spiritual announcement that no plan formed in secrecy will operate unchecked. Light has a way of dismantling what darkness depends on. Darkness thrives on ignorance and delay, but morning brings awareness and action. When God is invited into the first moments of the day, his presence exposes, disrupts, and overrides plans that were never meant to succeed. Many people underestimate the significance of timing in spiritual warfare. They wait until pressure builds, until confusion arises, or until damage has already occurred. By then, they are fighting uphill. Morning authority prevents escalation. It sets spiritual laws in motion that govern how the day unfolds. Words spoken in alignment early in the day carry weight because the atmosphere is still being shaped. Decisions made in prayer before movement tend to close doors that should never be opened. This is why consistent morning devotion produces unusual stability. Even when challenges arise, they feel restrained, limited, and manageable. The person may not always know what was prevented, but preservation is often unseen. Authority in the morning does not always announce itself with dramatic experiences. Often it shows up as smooth transitions, timely delays, unexplained peace, and avoided chaos. When darkness plans at night and no authority is enforced in the morning, the day becomes reactive and draining. But when authority is established early, the day becomes governed rather than random. Spiritual authority is not about shouting louder than the enemy. It is about standing in alignment earlier than the enemy expects. Prayer in the morning sets boundaries the enemy cannot cross, because boundaries are established by authority, not by intention. In the spiritual realm, whatever is not defined early remains open to intrusion. When a person begins the day without prayer, they may still believe in God, but they have not yet declared jurisdiction over their time, space, thoughts, and movements. Prayer is the act of drawing spiritual lines and announcing what is permitted and what is forbidden. It is not about informing God of danger. It is about enforcing heaven's order over the day. Boundaries are necessary because life is full of access points. Conversations, emotions, decisions, and opportunities can either become doors or walls. Morning prayer positions the believer to decide which is which. When prayer comes first, the heart is guarded before it is tested, and the mind is steadied before it is pressured. This early alignment restricts the reach of negative influences. The enemy thrives where there is access, but prayer limits that access by placing every area of life under divine authority. Spiritual attacks are often subtle rather than dramatic. They may come as sudden irritation, unwise urgency, misplaced confidence, or quiet distraction. Without boundaries, these small openings accumulate into larger problems. Morning prayer addresses this by sanctifying the day in advance. It dedicates the hours, encounters, and responsibilities to God before they unfold. This dedication functions like a protective perimeter. It does not eliminate challenges, but it defines how far those challenges can go. When boundaries are set through prayer, not every thought is allowed to settle, not every emotion is allowed to lead, and not every opportunity is allowed to progress. Discernment becomes sharper because the spirit has already been tuned to God's voice. Many dangers are neutralized simply because they are recognized early and denied permission to grow. This is why people who pray in the morning often sense when to withdraw, when to remain silent, and when to delay action. Prayer also establishes accountability. It is a declaration that the day will not be lived independently. This posture invites divine oversight, and where God oversees, preservation follows. Even when mistakes are made, boundaries reduce their impact. They prevent total collapse and limit damage. The enemy may attempt to test those lines, but he cannot cross what has been spiritually enforced. Over time, consistent morning prayer creates a disciplined spiritual environment. The day begins under rule rather than randomness, and life gradually reflects order instead of chaos. Boundaries set early quietly govern outcomes, reactions, and directions throughout the hours that follow. Divine protection is more than physical safety, because God's intention is not only to keep a person alive, but to keep them aligned, preserved, and advancing according to purpose. Many people define protection as the absence of harm, but in spiritual reality, protection also includes guidance that prevents wrong decisions, preservation that sustains strength, and favor that opens the right doors at the right time. A person can avoid accidents yet still lose direction, waste years, or miss assignments. True protection addresses all these dimensions together. Direction is a critical part of divine protection, because many dangers are the result of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. When God directs a person, he often protects them by positioning rather than by intervention. A change of route, a delayed response, or a redirected plan can quietly remove someone from exposure to loss or conflict. This kind of protection does not feel dramatic, but it is precise. It saves a person from struggles they never have to experience. Preservation works internally as well as externally. Life places constant demands on the mind, emotions, and spirit. Without preservation, people burn out, grow bitter, or lose clarity even when nothing visibly goes wrong. Divine protection sustains peace under pressure, strength under responsibility, and faith under uncertainty. It guards the inner life so that success does not destroy character and challenges do not drain hope. Many people survive seasons they should have been broken by, not because the season was easy, but because preservation was active. Favor completes the picture of divine protection by influencing outcomes beyond effort. Favor is God's hand shaping responses, opportunities, and timing in ways that reduce resistance and unnecessary struggle. When favor is present, help appears without manipulation, doors open without compromise, and recovery happens faster than expected. This is protective because it limits prolonged stress, conflict, and delay. It shields a person from fighting battles they were never assigned to fight. When direction, preservation, and favor operate together, life becomes both safer and more effective. The individual is not merely avoiding disaster, they are progressing with stability and clarity. Challenges still arise, but they are navigated with wisdom rather than panic. Divine protection in this sense is holistic. It guards the body, steers the path, stabilizes the heart, and enhances outcomes in ways that human effort alone cannot achieve. What you don't cover early, you may struggle with later, because time amplifies whatever is left unattended. In the spiritual sense, early moments are moments of authorization. When a matter is not addressed at the beginning, it often gains momentum, complexity, and resistance as the day progresses. Small gaps that seem harmless in the morning can become heavy burdens by evening. This is not because the issue was powerful, but because it was given time and space to grow without restriction. Life operates on the principle of seeds and seasons. Thoughts, emotions, and decisions planted early tend to shape outcomes later. When impatience, distraction, or fear is not covered with prayer and awareness at the start, it quietly influences reactions, conversations, and choices throughout the day. By the time the struggle becomes obvious, it has already taken root. This is why many people find themselves fighting battles they cannot trace back to a clear starting point. The origin was subtle and early. Covering something early is an act of prevention rather than repair. It is easier to guard the mind before pressure arrives than to restore peace after damage is done. It is easier to submit plans to God before movement than to seek correction after loss. Delay often turns manageable issues into exhausting struggles. What could have been settled with alignment becomes something that demands effort, emotional energy, and time. Spiritual neglect does not always show immediate consequences. Often the day seems normal at first, but as responsibilities increase and demands multiply, the uncovered areas begin to show strain. Words are spoken too quickly, decisions are rushed, and patience wears thin. The struggle is not sudden, it is cumulative. Each moment of neglect adds weight until the person feels overwhelmed without understanding why. Early covering creates spiritual insulation. It protects against escalation. When a day is committed to God early, problems are filtered before they become dominant. Wisdom intervenes sooner, restraint appears quicker, and help is accessed faster. This does not mean challenges disappear, but they remain proportional and manageable. Many long-term struggles in life can be traced back to short moments of neglect repeated over time. Missed prayer, ignored warnings, delayed obedience, and postponed alignment eventually compound. Early covering breaks this pattern. It stops issues at their smallest stage before they demand strength beyond what is necessary. What is addressed early rarely becomes heavy later because it never grows beyond its initial size. Morning devotion sharpens spiritual sensitivity because the mind and spirit are least cluttered at the start of the day. Before conversations, responsibilities, and information begin to compete for attention, the inner life is more receptive. This early quietness creates an environment where subtle impressions are easier to recognize and divine guidance can be discerned without distortion. Sensitivity is not about emotion or imagination. It is the ability to perceive what requires attention and what should be avoided. Throughout the day, decisions are constantly being made, many of them small but influential. Without spiritual sensitivity, people rely only on logic, urgency, or habit. Morning devotion calibrates the inner compass so that choices are informed by wisdom rather than impulse. When the spirit is aligned early, it becomes easier to sense hesitation where danger exists and peace where permission is present. This awareness often prevents mistakes that appear harmless at first but carry long-term consequences. Spiritual sensitivity also affects how information is processed. Not every opportunity is beneficial, and not every open door is meant to be entered. Morning devotion trains the heart to recognize the difference. It filters distractions and highlights priorities. When the spirit is tuned early, it remains alert throughout the day, even under pressure. This is why some people consistently make timely decisions and avoid unnecessary complications. They are not necessarily more intelligent, they are more attentive. Emotional regulation is another outcome of sharpened sensitivity. Many conflicts escalate because reactions happen faster than discernment. Morning devotion slows the inner response system. It introduces restraint before provocation and understanding before judgment. When emotions are submitted early, they are less likely to control behavior later. This preserves relationships and protects reputation. Sensitivity also enhances responsiveness to correction. When God prompts a change in tone, direction, or timing, a sensitive spirit responds quickly. This responsiveness minimizes loss. Delayed obedience often increases difficulty, but only responsiveness keeps adjustments small and manageable. Morning devotion builds this habit of listening and responding before resistance forms. Over time, consistent morning devotion develops a heightened awareness that operates almost instinctively. The person may not always articulate why they feel prompted to pause, speak, or move, but the results reveal accuracy. Life becomes less reactive and more guided. Spiritual sensitivity does not remove uncertainty entirely, but it reduces confusion. It allows a person to move through complex situations with clarity, restraint, and confidence that is rooted in alignment rather than guesswork. Heaven responds fastest to those who honor God with their first moments because priority communicates value in the spiritual realm. What is given first is not merely a portion of time. It is a statement of trust and recognition. When God receives the first moments of the day, it signals dependence rather than self-sufficiency. This posture creates alignment, and alignment accelerates response. Heaven is not slow by nature, but response is often tied to order. And order begins with priority. The first moments of the day set the tone for authority and access. When God is acknowledged first, the day is positioned under his rule rather than human control. This opens channels of communication that remain active throughout the hours that follow. Guidance flows more clearly because the heart is already inclined to listen. Help arrives more easily because resistance has not yet formed. Many delays people experience are not refusals but results of misplaced priority. Honoring God first also demonstrates faith. It is easy to seek God when pressure forces attention, but it requires trust to seek him before outcomes are known. This faith attracts response because it agrees with God's nature. Trust invites partnership. When a person commits the early moments to God, they are inviting him to be involved, not only in emergencies, but in ordinary decisions. This involvement reduces friction later in the day. Spiritual responsiveness is often time sensitive. Certain instructions are only effective when received early. Direction given late may still help, but it often requires correction instead of prevention. By honoring God first, a person positions themselves to receive guidance at the most advantageous moment. This reduces loss, confusion, and unnecessary struggle. Consistency in this practice compounds results. One morning of devotion brings clarity for a day, but repeated mornings build momentum. Over time, life begins to reflect a pattern of timely help and aligned outcomes. Problems are addressed earlier, solutions appear sooner, and strength is renewed before exhaustion sets in. This is not about earning favor through routine, but about maintaining relationship through order. Priority sustains connection, and connection sustains response. When God is given the first moments, he becomes actively involved in shaping the rest. The day unfolds with fewer surprises and more direction, not because challenges disappear, but because help is already present and engaged. As your morning concludes, remember that the first moments of your day determine the rest. What you cover early becomes your shield, your guide, and your source of strength throughout every encounter. Do not wait for challenges to appear before seeking protection. Instead, commit your steps, your thoughts, and your plans to God from the very start. When you make covering your morning a priority, you walk in peace, clarity, and favor that the enemy cannot touch. Let this become your daily habit, and watch how every day begins under divine authority, ensuring victory before the day even unfolds.